Hello, สวัสดีค่ะ My name is Hazel Wanda Ginajil. I'm the ESL Director at Asia Pacific International University, Saraburi, Thailand. Along with me is Assistant Professor Dr. Jeffrey Dawala Wilang of Suranari University of Technology. Together, we produced a research entitled English Language Speaking Anxiety of International Students in Thailand. It is a joyful occasion for us to be able to present at the Faculty of Liberal Arts, Thammasat University National and International Conference 2022 on July 26 to 27. Without further ado, let us get into our research. Now, Dr. Jeffrey and I wanted to produce a research around language learning. Specifically, we wanted to look at the speaking skill. So here's some background to the study. Foreign language anxiety is a situation-specific anxiety when associated with learning a foreign language. This is related to the negative emotional reactions of the learners toward foreign language acquisition. Numerous studies on foreign language anxiety, or FLA, as proposed by Horwitz and Cope in 1986 were conducted in EFL and ESL contexts and classrooms. Findings have claimed the debilitative effect of foreign language anxiety onto language performance, motivation, speaking, listening, reading and writing scores. Such studies have yielded very interesting practical implications to English language teaching. For example, on how language teachers help minimize FLA's negative effects on English learning. However, very limited studies were conducted in an international university in Thailand. Previous research in Thailand have shown negative associations between language anxiety and presentation, language anxiety in class discussion, language anxiety and final exam, as well as language anxiety and final grade, as quoted by Vo, Samoilova, and Wilang, 2017 and 2018. Now, such results correlates with previous studies where anxiety's effect is pervasive in various contexts. According to Goldschi 2012, Elka Fife in 2005, and Phillips in 1992, as well as Dow, Dainia, and Gore in 2013. In a situation perceived as threatening and beyond one's ability to deal with the threat, anxiety is a natural consequence, according to Goira, 1983. And it is said that foreign language learning itself is a profoundly unsettling psychological proposition, because it threatens learners' self-concepts, world concepts, as well as world concepts which are rarely challenged when communicating in a native language. Now, speaking is not just a demanding activity, but also involves high anxiety levels, especially for learners of a second or foreign language. Yet it is a skill that they must master to do well in content courses, especially at the tertiary level of education. Studies have shown that students' speaking performance is related to anxiety. Anxiety is said to be one of the factors that could affect the process of learning, and researchers such as McIntyre 1995, Horwitz 1986, and McIntyre and Garner in 1989 and 1991 claim that language courses are very anxiety provoking. So studies have also shown that students utilizing productive skills, namely writing and speaking, are found to experience a considerable amount of anxiety in the process of learning, according to Hilson, 1996, and Zhang, 2001. So the issue here is to discover whether anxiety level increases or changes using the sorting method. We formulated 3 research questions, which we later answered at 3 different stages of our research. At stage 1, our research question is, to what extent do students in an international university feel anxious about speaking? Are there differences based on nationality and locality? Our second research question, which we answered at stage 2, does the level of speaking anxiety change over time? And our third research question, which we then answered at the 3rd stage, what are the reasons for the change? So let me go through the methodology of our research. This study adopted a 3-stage mixed method design. In the first stage, the speaking anxiety questionnaire was sent to students in a private university in Thailand. The data was analyzed to know the level of speaking anxiety among the participants. In the second stage, a sorting activity was held twice with students based on a purposive sampling. The selected students were asked to sort some selected speaking anxiety statements from the questionnaire. At least 12 of the speaking anxiety statements were sorted. 3 random statements of strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. However, the number of statements depended on the survey response. The sorting activity was conducted twice, and the second sorting activity was done 2 weeks after the first. So questionnaire, sorting activity 1, and then sorting activity 2. In the 3rd stage of our research, an individual semi-structured interview was conducted to know why their anxiety changed over time. Now, the instruments and data collection procedures took place in 2 stages. In the first stage, the questionnaire, in which the questionnaire was sent to the students. Students completed the questionnaire, and then students were selected based on the questionnaire. A slight note here, a 4-point scale was chosen by the researchers so that the respondents can decisively answer each item in the survey clearly. In the second stage, it was the sorting activity, in which 3 random statements of strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree were selected. Then a board was prepared with numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the statements were given to the students. Students would read the statements and place the statements at the relevant number, whether it was an agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. The researchers observed and took notes as the students completed their sorting activity. After the student completed, after they were sure and they placed each statement accordingly, the researchers conducted a semi-structured interview. So this is how the sorting activity took place. And then the second sorting activity took place in a similar manner. Now, how did we analyze our data? So for research question number 1, we used questionnaire, the survey questionnaires, and the results of the questionnaire were taken, and descriptive statistics was used for data interpretation. For research question number 2, we use the Q methodology, and descriptive statistics data was also used for interpretation. For research question number 3, we conducted a semi-structured interview, and the coding of the interview was done, and the interpretation of the answers were taken as we compiled the data for analysis. So over here, you can see a table, and this is how we collected our results. We have our statements. Okay, we have our statements of anxiety, and then we have the mean score and the standard deviation. And in what I have done here is that I have arranged the statements according to the standard deviation's highest point to its lowest point. And these are all the items found in the survey. Okay, we're going to take a closer look at some of those statements in a little bit. But let's now take a look at some other results. So the high speaking anxiety statements showed that these statements are provoking statements or provoking situations. Okay, so these are the results of high speaking anxiety provoking statements. So again, the statements are arranged from the highest point of its standard deviation to the lowest point. I'll just read the first one up here. It's from item 23. Even if I am very well prepared, I feel anxious about speaking English. So the mean score that we have collected for this statement is a 2.6, and the standard deviation is 1.03. Excuse me. And over here, another statement number 10, I have no fear of speaking English. The mean score for this statement is 2.74. It has a pretty high speaking anxiety level, and its standard deviation is a 0.98. Okay, now let's take a look at some low speaking anxiety provoking situations. And these are the statements that I have chosen that resemble low speaking anxiety provoking situations. Again, I have arranged the statements according to its standard deviation point, from the highest to the lowest. And the highest here is item number 20. I dislike using my voice and body expressively while speaking English. That 0.95. And the last one at the bottom, I enjoy the experience of speaking English. The mean score is 1.78. So that's a low speaking anxiety provoking situation with a standard deviation of 0.79. So let's take a look at some more results. Now, here are the differences of speaking anxiety based on nationality and locality. So you can see on this table, we have the countries represented in the study. So these are our respondents and their countries of origin. So again, I have arranged the countries of origin according to the lowest this time, all the way to the highest point of standard deviation. And if I could just pick out randomly, if I can just pick out, and let's take a look at the mean score here. If you can look at Thai, all right, or if you can look at Thai, the Thais have a mean score of 2.61, whereas if you look at the Americans, they have a mean score of 1.2, which means they are not as as they don't have that much anxiety in speaking, whereas the Thais have a higher level of anxiety. Okay, we're going to come back to here, or I'm going to explain a little further later, but let's go and look at some more results. So let's take a look at our case studies. So we have chosen four, and we've chosen to present 4 samples of case studies from our research. And case study number 1 is a person who has high anxiety, about 3.36. And these are the statements of high anxiety. And you can see in the survey, the student chose, certain points and then in sorting activity 1, there's a change, and sorting activity 2, there's a change. All right, so we're going to take a closer look at this later. In case study 2, the student also has a high anxiety level of 3.52. And again, you can look at the score here from the survey, and then sorting activity 1 and then sorting activity 2, there is a change. Now let's take a look at the low level. So case study 3 is a participant who has low level anxiety, only about 1.4. And you can see from the survey, the sorting activity 1 and sorting activity 2 result, also there is a change. And then the last one is case study number 4 that we're sharing with you here. And this student has low anxiety levels, 1.24. And you can also see a change on the survey, sorting activity 1, 3, and then sorting activity 3. And then over here is 1, 1, and 2. So from high anxiety to low, and from low anxiety to high. But all in all, this particular respondent has an average of 1.24, which indicates a low level of anxiety. But it just so happened that this item number 8, I'm afraid that other students will laugh at me while I'm speaking. The student has a higher level of anxiety at this statement. Okay, so some more results here, and we can focus in a little bit more specifically on the question, does the level of speaking anxiety change over time, and why does it change? So we can see here that there is a change from the survey to the first and to the second, 4, 3, and 2. And then for case study number 2, we have 4, 3, and 2. And then for the low, 1, 1, and then 3, and then 1, 1, and 2. So what is the reason? So, or why does it change? So we asked our students or our participants in the interview. So here are some of the responses. The student says, I get anxious because this time I see the researchers face to face and I fear the unknown. I'm still very nervous. However, the statement is something I have already read. Okay, so first time seeing the researcher face to face, so high level of anxiety. But because the statement is something familiar, it kind of balances off. That's why there's a little drop of in the point, right? I think it was 4, 3. And then the second one was a 3, and this is the explanation of the change. Now, the reason for the change in the second sorting activity, the student said, this time I know and understand the statements better. I'm also more comfortable with the activity compared to the first time. Okay, so much more comfortable and understand. So it's, after time, not just comfortable with the statement, but there's understanding in the statement as well. For the low level of anxiety, let me read the reason at the bottom here, the last one. I like to speak, so I'm not anxious waiting for my name to be called. Okay, very confident. So that's why there's no anxiety or very little anxiety. But what made the participant change? I guess If it's like a speaking exam, I might have a little anxiety, especially if I'm not prepared. So I'm changing my answer. So after some time, the respondent had time to think, oh, in other situations, maybe in, depending on the context, it can affect how I feel, especially if I'm not prepared. So that waiting time allowed the student to think about knowledge, whether he or she is equipped with the knowledge that is required to produce the response, verbal response or not. Okay, so there is a trend and there is a change of anxiety level. So in our discussion, we looked at some of some possible reasons. Number one, why speaking anxiety exists in an international university in Thailand, and we kind of answered that in our in the results of our research. Okay, yeah. And in number two, why Thais and Cambodians have a higher level of anxiety compared to other nationalities. So if we go back and take a look at the table a while ago, we can see that Thais and Cambodian have a higher level. And why is that? And possibly because, they are in that EFL and ESL setting compared to the native language speakers. And of course, there are some possible reasons for speaking anxiety change because of familiarity, as well as time, because the time allowed the students to gain more confidence, more understanding, and therefore there was a change. All right, so in the next step of our presentation, we are writing our manuscript. And so if you have any suggestions, any comments, any questions, please feel free to make them, to give them. We welcome your comments, your questions, and your suggestions that can help improve our research. So thank you very much for your time, and we hope to hear from you.